Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, August 19th, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Ekev. Here in Ekev, we have the second paragraph of the Shema. The first paragraph appeared in the previous Parsha, in Vayetchanan, Shema ve'ahavta, Shema Yisrael, in the paragraph of and you shall love God. And here, the second paragraph, Ve'hayim Shamoa, which focuses more on the reward and punishment of mitzvot, is to be found. Yet there are certain phrases which are repeated here, the mitzvah of tefillin, for example, and mezuzah are here, and also the mitzvah of seemingly of Talmud Torah, of studying Torah, specifically the teaching of Torah with our children. But it's phrased differently here than it is in the first paragraph of Shema. Last week we met the mitzvah in the following way: Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, which we generally translate, and you shall teach them diligently to your children, to speak of them, b'shivtecha b'veitecha, the rest. And here we have v'limadtem otam et b'neichem ledaber bam, and which means something like, right, you should teach them to your children to speak in them. And so, is this the same or is this different? Why not use the exact same phrase? We'll say, okay, that's the use of the pen to convey the same idea, sometimes with a slight variation, but that's where all the interesting stuff happens. So Rashi says this indeed means more teaching, mouth to ear. Misha sheben yodel daber lamadehu. From the moment that your child knows how to speak, you should be teaching him. Torah tziv alanu Moshe. Rashi quotes the Sifrei that Moshe commanded us the Torah. Sheyehei zed limud diburo, that this should be the way he learns how to speak. Don't teach him gibberish. Don't teach him just nursery rhymes. The first thing you teach him is Torah tziv alanu Moshe. That's what should be on your child's lips immediately. In your early teaching. And Mikan Amru, says Rashi, from here the sages say, Keshetinok matchil daber, when from the very first moments that a child begins to speak, Aviv Mesiach imo b'lashon hakodesh u'melamdehu Torah, that his father should speak to him specifically in Hebrew, and teach him Torah. Hebrew, lashon hakodesh, the holy language. Now that's interesting and important because Rashi was I don't know how early Yiddish was, but there was some Old French that Rashi clearly was speaking, and because he was often translating into Old French, and so was there a Judeo-French language of Yiddish already. That will leave it to other scholars to determine whether by his time that was the case. But there's a mitzvah, he says, you should be teaching and speaking to your child in Hebrew. I tried that. I remember with my son Akiva, and I tried to talk to him in Hebrew, and at some point, I gave up when Akiva said some sentence in Hebrew, and he said, "What you saying, Abba?" And I knew it was already lost. But that's how it's supposed to be, says Rashi. That's the reading of B'shinantam levanecha. I'm sorry, v'limadtem otam et b'neichem ledaber bam. You should use the method of teaching how a child to speak in them from the very first moments of their lives. These are the words and the language that should be used. So it's still about the oral conveyance. The Seforno, interestingly, chooses to go a different route, and says the Seforno, "V'limadtem otam et b'neichem, hergilu et b'neichem b'mitzvot." Help make mitzvot something that is regular with your children. V'daber bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha, kedei shetidabru bam tamid, so that they will speak about them often, regularly, ongoingly. That's a little different. That's not about more talk between father and mother and child. It is the goal that the child should come to care enough to be talking about Torah and mitzvot on their own. But here it's about practice. Hergilu et b'neichem b'mitzvot. It's what happens in the home, not just what you say to your child, however deeply important all those teachings from mouth to ear are. It is about making activities, tactile actions mitzvot that are carried out, that's where it takes place. That's what the Seforno says. And we know that we as parents, and those who are listening as grandparents, and those who are playing roles with other people as well, hopefully a positive influence, know that there's a lot you can accomplish and you're meant to accomplish in the words that you use. And sometimes it's time to stop talking and just act together in a natural kind of way. Not everything deserves a spoken out lesson. It's just about, this is what we do, and this is good. Oh, and then and you know, whether you talk about the meaning of it or not, that's part of the living life of religious observance, and that's to be conveyed, and it's described specifically in the second paragraph of Shema, as Seforno reads it, that parents and children and everybody else in your orbit are supposed to engage in together. May we all merit to lead a life which is regulated, hergilu, which is involved regularly with mitzvot, and may we all come to speak about them all the time because they are good. Have a Shabbat Shalom.